Welcome to another awesome episode of the Epic Kate podcast. This was such a wonderful, deep, heart-searching, philosophical conversation with Gina Ferrara. She's such a calm, beautiful person. Her voice is so soothing to listen to. I know you're going to love this conversation. It's her journey of finding her purpose and finding her joy and joy and service through Reiki. Yeah, let's just jump in. I'll stop rambling.
Hello, Gina. It's so wonderful to meet you and to jump into your spiritual journey.
Thank
Can
you.
you give us a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. I'm Gina Ferrara, and right now I am somebody that is using Reiki and energy in terms of helping folks and myself to be more mindful, be more meditative, be more grounded, and be more resilient in who I am and who we are. So I do have a private Reiki practice where I see people in person and virtually. I love doing groups. I also do employee wellness, which is really cool. And yeah, so I use Reiki, I use sound healing, I use meditation, I use movement, and I also do auricular acupuncture. So those are all a part of my practice. And I am a big part of my work right now is Insight Timer, where I provide live sessions and guided audio tracks. So yeah.
Neat. So a question kind of popped into my head about it. Do you think that it's possible that at some point in your life you were doing Reiki without realizing that that's what it was, that you just didn't even have the word for it?
Well, I'm not sure I can speak specifically about Reiki, but I can definitely say that there was an energy connection for my entire life, but I had no understanding of it. And I love that you mentioned that because I wouldn't have put it in those words, or thought about it in those terms. However, when I was growing up, I was always a person that people said, "Oh, you're so calm. You bring such a peace to this situation." They wanted to be around me because they felt drawn into whatever this was that I had. So, Katie, that was what was happening for people. But what was happening inside was complete and utter nothingness. I didn't have any clue about myself, about communication, about learning. I really was completely disconnected. So it was I understood that this was how I was perceived, but I had no understanding of what that was or where that was coming from. So there was this complete disconnection for me in perception and who I actually felt I was. So I don't think I never understood it. It took me decades to come into a space where I feel comfortable in my own skin. And my family life was, I was raised Roman Catholic. It was a very kind of devout family and, very spiritual in that way in terms of being religious. But there were no discussions about self or inner self or meditation or exploration. There was none of that understanding in my own family. So I didn't kind of grow up with that. And I think there were times along the way where I was searching, but I never really connected, or I never pushed myself far enough. I didn't have the motivation. And I was one of these people, and I still am, I can still get like this, where I will get completely caught up in doing things and keeping myself busy. I look back at all my family members on my mom's side, actually. And that's it. You're always involved. You're always doing, you don't sit down. You go from one thing to the next. It's one of those things where, you have people over and you're not even enjoying your company because you're so busy prepping, cleaning, all of these different things. So that was really how I did the environment where I was existing, and I kept that. And because it was what I knew and it was what I was comfortable.
So
So
did you have a sense of like being an empath and absorbing the emotions of others and feeling overwhelmed by that?
absolutely. I had no words for it, but I knew that even as a child, I had no boundaries. I could not manage my relationships in that way because I was so concerned about everyone else all the time.
And I wanted to ask too, with the Catholic growing up, was it yours? That like, did you have a personal connection to it, or did you have a thing of, oh, that can't be right, like a disconnect
Yeah,
between it?
yeah, definitely. Well, so I remember being in church one day. I was probably 8 or 9 or 10 and saying to my mother, I think I have a calling to become a nun, which I really didn't, but I just think, I don't even know why I said it, but it was just there. And my mother said to me, no, you can't be a nun. They have a terrible life, you know? So I thought, oh, okay, I guess I won't do that, you know? But my inclination was that I didn't believe any of it. I didn't buy it. It didn't seem reasonable to me. And I'm not a scientific person, but I just felt I questioned everything they did.
Mm.
And of course, now that I'm older and have a greater spirit connection myself, I can come back to some of those teachings. And I still am somewhat connected with Catholicism. I have a different distaste for it though. It's that, I just can't follow all of the protocols and the
Mm.
principles. However, I can better connect than I could when I was young to the spiritual and the energy understanding of religion.
Do you think that the wanting to be a nun or vocalizing that was more of a vocalization of, I want to be around people who really mean what they say and are really in a different spiritual level? Like, I want to be on a different level.
I mean, perhaps I also think I was just searching for anything that might work, that might fit. I obviously think I felt devoid, even
Mm.
though here I was immersed in this culture, immersed in Christianity and religion. I felt completely spiritually devoid. So maybe in some ways that was true, that I was just searching for some kind of connection. I also just think I was hoping that something would stick that felt
Mm.
right.
Wow.
And obviously it never did spiritually for me for a very long time. Although the one thing I've always done is I've danced most of my life. And that was one way I found grounding. And in some sense, it was a connection to my spirit and to spirit above. And I didn't even realize that until I took a Qigong class one time. And as a part of the end of this, it was an unusual class. At the end of this, we did some movement. And, I do it all the time. I did a lot of improvising and class work. I didn't do as much kind of using movement on my own as a way of processing. Even though I'm a dance therapist, that's my background. I did it in therapy, but once I left therapy, I kind of didn't come back to that. And during this Qigong class, I had this unbelievable connection to myself, to a couple of my ancestors, in a way that I had never experienced before. So now I understand movement and I use movement in a different way than I used to. In fact, I don't really dance. I was dancing, not really professionally, but I had a company for 20 years, an adult company that we would perform. It was very intense, it was wonderful. But it was also, you're focused on doing a specific task and you're using movement in a whole nother way. And it's performance, which I love. But this is now I'm able to use movement for my own purposes and for my own deep grounding and deep connection. So obviously that was there all the time because I danced since from the time I was small. So it obviously still gave me that. I just didn't know it, Katie. I didn't realize that connection. That was what I'm saying, that I had this entire life of disconnection, this entire life of not understanding. And, I went on and I had a career and I raised my family, and I think I did volunteer work. I think I did things that I feel happy about and glad that I was able to, share with my community. But I did it all from a very superficial place.
Wow. I can tell that that's really a theme that is so heavy and important in your life, is being disconnected from yourself. Um, so, but I would really love to hear about the connection with the ancestor thing. Like, where does that fit in, and tell me everything. Like, did you see them? Did you talk with them? What was that?
You love that. You like the woo woo.
I
So, yes, it was a visual as well as a sense. And it was my grandmother and then someone I didn't know, actually. So, and I don't know, who it was. And it was really just, I'm going to get very emotional. It was very emotional.
just like a sense of them loving you so much and lifting you up, or
I think just a sense of being present. I think that was really this understanding that I'm not alone. And I think that was really wonderful. Now, it took me a long time from that experience to get to the place where I really feel that connection truly. It's probably been, I would say, over a decade. However, that was a really miraculous moment, and being able to move with these people and really feel the love and sense the fact that I was a part of something, that I come from this other space, that I am not just one entity, that I am one little piece of so much else. And that is very warming and very comforting and very supportive. And to explain that to people overall and in general, I don't do it, but I feel that, and I hope that now in my work, I'm able to transfer that in other ways, in ways that people can accept and take in a little bit more easily and more effectively for them. Yeah.
that not being alone is such a powerful thing. Like, do you think that they are like a spirit family, or or guides?
So I think I use my grandmother for sure as my guide. And whether or not she actually is, I know that I have others, but I just have decided that I use her for that purpose. And she does have this connection to me anyway, because she was somebody who, so she knew, I'm trying to think, she passed away when my youngest daughter was an infant. And I'm one of the oldest daughter. I'm the oldest granddaughter of that on that side of the family. And so I feel that I've been able to help pass on a lot of what my grandmother shared to my cousins, who weren't able to experience her in that way. For example, I'll just give the example of, I was nursing my children, and my youngest daughter, my older daughter, I nursed her for a long time, and I got a little bit of heat about that from different people, of course, and I hope it's changed now. She's 32, but I stuck with it, but it's obviously bothered me, and of course I spoke to my grandmother about it, and my grandmother said to me, listen, she had 5 children. She said, I nursed all my kids until I couldn't anymore. And the doctor said to me about her second to youngest, he's 2 years old. You have to stop nursing him. And she said, why should I stop nursing him? I still have milk. And that was it. I mean, I thought she stood her ground at a time when, women didn't do that, and certainly not with your physician. You're all knowing, powerful physician. And that felt so important to me. I never really cared after that what I did. And I passed that on to one of my younger cousins who was having a similar issue with her family. And I said, listen, this is what grandma said,
Yeah.
So I feel that whether or not she's an actual guide for me, she is my guide. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I nursed my twin girls till they were 2. I tried to nurse till 2 with my boy, but he wasn't interested. The last few times I tried, it was just too painful. I'm like, okay, this is it. It's hard to let go of that when it's just such a beautiful connection.
Yes. Yeah. My younger daughter also, my older daughter was probably 2.5, but my younger daughter wasn't even 2 yet. She got sick and she wouldn't go back to it. I tried. I was like, come on, it's so much easier. Yes, right. So yeah, they're all different and we're all different.
So
But
you were saying that you went through life in a superficial kind of surface level way. At what point did you start to get into connection with yourself? And yeah.
well, I always tried. I had always been connected and practiced yoga, although I didn't really understand the philosophy. I didn't understand yoga as a whole philosophy, but I still loved the practice of it and the meditative part of it. And I took a couple of like meditation classes. I was looking and searching, but nothing ever really stuck until I worked. So for many years, for 40 years, I worked in the psychiatric field, doing movement, dance, and therapy. And at this hospital, I worked at a couple of state facilities. And at the last place I just left there last year, there was a group of people that were really interested in pursuing alternative practices. And they formed a committee, and I was not really one of them, although I joined with them because I'm a dancer, and I really put that into that process, which I think it is alternative, different, complementary. And they began to offer all kinds of trainings. So I just jumped on every training I could get because most of them were free or I could get them reimbursed. And my first one was actually Reiki. And I took Reiki 1 and I tried it, I practiced, and I just couldn't find the connection. So I let that go. But in the meantime, I was able to focus on learning about vibrational healing, working with Tibetan bowls, and that absolutely just blew me open. I suddenly found this energetic connection. I found this way of being still and being quiet and understanding that vibration and energy is not just outside of me, but it's in me, and we can connect. So that was kind of the first aha moment. I fell in love with that, and that is all I wanted to do. I mean, I also took mindfulness-based stress reduction, and that started my journey with practicing meditation, which has taken me, and I'm still learning, I'm still going, but that was another piece that enabled me to finally get still. I think, Kate, that's really what it was to find stillness. So that I could actually listen because I couldn't hear. So I was using all of those things. I was using the ideas of meditation and the vibrational sounds. I was using them at work. I was using them with myself and my family, and it was good. And I had a friend who she continued on with her Reiki practice. And she said, you should keep going. I said, nah, it's just, it's not for me. It's not for everybody. It's not for me. She says, just do the next level. So a couple of years went by, and full disclosure, at work we used to get reimbursed for doing trainings, and yeah, it was a great gig actually. So I did a lot of great trainings, fortunately, and was able to do that and bring it back to where I worked. And I wanted to go away one year. I wanted to go back to California. That's where I lived for many years, and I did my master's degree out there. And I was dying to get back there. We were going to go on vacation with our friends. I had to find a training to go to so that I could make it all work. And I looked for everything: meditation, yoga, sound. I tried looking for in ashrams. I mean, wherever I could think of, and I could find nothing at that particular time, except for one training. And of course, it was Reiki. Yeah. So I went, ugh. So I did it. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I did it really without any expectation, without any true interest. And I went there, and people there were already really invested in the Reiki process. I felt a little out of place. But by the end, we did 1 and 2 kind of as a combined weekend. And in the end, even though at the beginning people were having all of these experiences, they were seeing colors, and there are these like lights and sparkles jumping out of people's heads, and they're having all these amazing experiences, and I'm going, don't feel anything. But I decided to commit to it because something about it felt right. Part of it was watching everybody else being so connected and interested in it. And the other part of it was me and my teachers. I just felt this real draw to them and what they had. And so I took it back with me, and I have not looked back since. I have just practiced and utilized it. And I think it was in the Reiki practice that everything started to solidify for me. I had the other things. My meditation then was really bumped up quite a bit. My work with any bit of energy that I used was so powerful. The thing for me about Reiki has been the Reiki principles, and the fact that this took me a time to learn, and it wasn't anything that, it was really just about reading and working the process, that I came to understand that it isn't just this energy, it's a whole system, it's a whole philosophy, it's a whole lifestyle for me. And the Reiki principles are, I will not anger, it's just for today, just for today. I will not anger, I will not worry, I will be grateful, I will work with diligence, and I will be kind. And as simple as those are, that's how complex they are. I remember when I first read them, I thought, oh, no big deal. Like when I picked up the book, The Four Agreements, I'm like, this is easy stuff, My gosh, it's nothing is easy. Everything is broken. You can break it up and bracket it out. And so that philosophy has become really part of my value and my values, and has helped me to find and maintain connection to who I am and how I'm connected to everything else. So, and I actually have a course now on Insight Timer of the 5 Reiki principles. It's for anybody. It's because I believe that those principles are so valuable in their simplicity that anybody can use those as a guideway into advancing anything in your life. So that's, I guess you asked how it started. So that's really what happened. That was my progression. It was like from this dead space to this very slow.
That's so cool.
Really remarkable. Really
remarkable. When you were talking about people seeing colors shooting out of their head and sparkles, it just, I relate. I'm like, a part of me can't get over the jealousy I have for people who get to see stuff, I had a lady that I talked to, a lady who talked to gnomes when she was a kid.
Oh, it's
Like,
amazing.
oh, like I know a person in real life who talked to mermaids when she was a kid. Like,
Hey, that is awesome. I mean, I have, I guess we all have a different path and we all have different
yeah.
skills, and I can all of us experience that? I'm not sure. I know that we just each experience things very differently.
Mm.
I have never seen sparkles come out of my head. However, I've had other experiences, but they are subtle. They
Mm.
are subtle, and
How,
sometimes for me,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
that's okay.
Yeah, how do you experience the energy? How do you see energy?
Yeah, I don't always see it. I sense it though.
Hmm.
And I think as being a dancer, I am just very physical. And so my experiences are almost always visceral and come through my body. So I think that's it. They're not always easy to even explain and put into words, which is problematic in our society, but I also think it's good. We don't always need to be able to state it,
Mm.
as long as we can understand, feel it, sense it, and incorporate it, or incorporate what it brings.
It occurred to
Yes.
me that like you're a dancer, and that when that's something that you're so connected with your body, you probably notice other how other people move in their bodies. Like, is it spiritual, is it physical, because you're trained to see it. It's like you can tell when a person's a dancer and the way they point their toes when they walk or something. So can you like see when people move, like, oh, they're feeling heavy, they're feeling burdened?
I mean, yes, I always look at how people move, and that's how I identify. But I also don't want to label that necessarily. You did a lot of that during my work in therapy, which was somewhat helpful. It can also get in the way. It's like a label.
Mm.
And so, rather than worrying or being concerned about what it might be, let's just work with what it is. So I try not to judge it too much. And, I have this thing in my own body and my own life that I have very much a hunched, you can't really see me, but I'm always hunched forward a little bit. And was my mother, my grandmother, my aunt. I see it in the women. I don't see it so much in the men. And I thought, well, it's really just our bodies and our carriage, and it could be, but I also think it is what we've been holding and what we carry over the generations, whether it's this stuffing down of emotion or this holding on to things that we can't seem to release. So we pass these things on, and again, I'm not sure. Sometimes it's worth going deep in terms of the initiation of what they are, because we want to work through trauma, but we also can work physically and allow the traumas to release, whether or not we're aware of what they are. There's
Mm.
pros and cons to that.
Oh man, I just want to say to the listeners out there, Bad Posture Club, where are you? Did everybody sit up straighter while listening to this?
I mean, it's something that I'll probably work on the rest of my life. And I have a good friend who is also a dancer, but she's a ballet dancer. I was a modern dancer, and she has a dance ballet company. And when we walk together every week, and when I walk with her, boy, I am up, because she's as straight as a board. It's good. It's
But
good.
when you talked about that, the generational trauma and things that we hold in, it made me think of the connection that you had and that first feeling of closeness to your grandma and somebody else. And I talked to this wonderful lady, Nuria, and she's black, and she shared having a powerful experience of connecting with European ancestors and forgiving them.
Mm,
And like,
wow.
oh, just how differently must her body have felt. And inside of herself and posture wise and having that clearing.
Oh yeah, it gives her, I'm sure, so much more openness. And then also, not just internally, it's providing an openness. It's an open pathway energetically as well, because you're releasing some of those restraints, constraints that you've held. I mean, it takes everybody else to do it as well. But, that's a start. It's the beginning. It's like I always feel that I want to be the pebble or I want to be the raindrop in the lake. So, that one drop of water hits a still water, hits a still lake, and the ripples move out and they go so far, right? They just go for a long time. So they're touching whatever or whomever is out there. But if once we start getting some sprinkles and the drops are everywhere, so it isn't just me or it isn't just you, we are able to open things up and spread out and send off all of the positive things that we need to release what needs to be released, to create the bonds that need to be created. And so I love that she was able to do that. And that's the hope. I mean, that's how I look at my work now. And this has evolved over the past several years, but just to be that place, just to be that impetus for myself, because it has to start with me. But if I can spread that out to somebody else so that they're doing their part and they're doing their part, so that we're just sending out these tendrils of love and joy and openness.
And
That
the healing that needs to happen for so many people with the judgment and fear that came out of religion. That was like, if you're not good enough, you'll go to hell, or you were born disgusting and evil and depraved, and
yeah,
these
no,
things.
that's true.
And I grew up Christian, evangelical Christian, so it was the rapture stuff. I don't think Roman Catholics have the rapture theology so much, right?
They talk about it, but it's not. It's more second coming than it is about the rapture itself. But yeah, rapture's there.
Yeah. It's like, oh gosh. And then everybody will be disappearing from their cars and crashes everywhere, and it'll be awful.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh man, so
yeah. I
much
think
trauma to work through.
yeah, there is, and I think because it is generational, religion, even Roman Catholicism, I don't feel that is not the main focus of the message anymore. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
But it has remained. It has remained, and that is, what stays with us is the stuff that keeps us down.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I can't. Religion is everybody needs something different, and there are people that go into military service because that's important for them to follow a certain protocol, and there are people for whom religion is extremely important and provides those really set values that help. I mean, I use values, so I just feel I can be more. I feel better about being flexible with my own values, but values are important for us. It gives us a way to maintain sanity and stability in times that can be very chaotic. So I would never put down anybody that wants to utilize religion because I think it has its place. But I also think there are so many other options for people to find their spiritual center. Like I said, I still connect somewhat to my own religion. It's probably just always going to be a part of me, and a part of my evolution, even if it was somewhat to move away.
Yeah.
It had a place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was just the figuring out who you were and not just being caught up in the busyness and in the you got to be doing and you got to be carrying everything, and if you don't keep everything moving, everything will fall apart.
Yes, exactly. That's it. Because then you'd have to think and feel and, these things that are too hard to. And yeah, so that is exactly right. And it's interesting because I'm speaking with one of my older family members right now who is also going through a similar, and she's much older than I am, but going through a similar place in her life where she's had to slow down. And all of a sudden now you have to feel.
But I think
But
it's so special that you, through your whole life, were like, I'm gonna keep looking. I'm gonna find something that works to get in connection with myself and find peace.
well, I'm grateful that I survived to find this place. I mean, obviously, I'm not done and I'll never be done. But I feel very happy that I have found the beginnings of this and that I know that this is possible. So that's why I always feel that there's always hope for everyone, no matter what situation you're in. And I think a lot about the devastation of the world right now and the difficulties that families have, that children have in situations that are neglectful or abusive, and obviously people that are living in situations where there's war or oppression, and it probably seems like there's never a way out. And so that's why I really hope and try to instill for myself and in the folks that I work with that even though it's important for us to utilize the supports that exist around us, we have to keep our own resilience. We have to know that everything we hold is within us and we are still a part of a bigger picture, and that can always be supportive. So no matter in the end, whatever, like Eckhart Tolle talks about finding peace, we find peace doesn't mean we're going to be happy with the situation we're in, but we'll still be peaceful within ourselves. And so that's pretty important to me.
Mm. So who does your heart just hurt for the most? Like who are the people that you tend to connect with and help through their things?
I think my most connect with children and animals.
Oh,
Yeah.
I actually wrote that down in the very beginning. I was like, I wonder what your connection is with animals.
Yeah, I think being an empath, I really connect very deeply with their suffering and their difficulty in life, and while still understanding that I can't I can't put my own feelings of being a human being on them because it's a completely different setup. But they still have feelings, they have souls, they have energy. And, suffering is suffering. I don't care what you are.
Yeah, for sure. Can you
So
like feel? Oh, sorry.
no, I just think, I feel most strongly toward people who are really in vulnerable situations.
Mm.
And I think mostly about children and children, animals, and people that are either older, well, which I am now too, but or compromised in some way because I feel, and I saw it because I worked in a system, an institution for a long time, people that can be neglected or taken advantage of, who don't have as much control over their outer life.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that do you can you like hear animals?
No, not really, but I do share energy with animals. And I do feel that connection, that thread with them. I love to do it with I have two cats, and I love to do it with them, which I feel definitely I have obviously a strong bond. But also when I'm in nature, if I'm quiet and in nature, I love to send out positive energy and really see what I receive back from them. I have a strong connection to dragonflies, which is like I'm wearing one now, but my company's name is Odonata, which is the what do you call it? The order of dragonflies and damselflies, excuse me. And that has been a connection for a long time for me. It started out very innocently, actually. I just recall dragonflies. I lived not too far from a lake, I guess, but I didn't really live near water. This was my home that I moved from about 4 years ago, that I lived in for 30 years, raised our kids there. And this dragonfly just kept coming around. And at that time, I was having a very difficult situation with one of my family members. And the fact that the dragonfly was there, in fact, there were two mating on our driveway one time, and they would just seem to be constantly around us. And my husband said to me, they have meaning. And I looked into that, and they are about transformation and change. And since that time, I am acutely aware of dragonflies, no matter when they are around me. And I also had a situation at work where, again, not near water, but the dragonflies would chase me and follow me around in the parking lot at work. And I just always felt that there was this connection to the fact that my life is shifting, I am changing, and that I am being connected to these people that I'm having difficulty with. And I'll just share this story about when my mother was dying. This was around water, though. My parents lived in Orlando, Florida, which has a beautiful lake there. And my mother had been in hospice, and I live in Connecticut, so I traveled to stay with her on the final days of her life. And I just stayed in the room with her, and she was in a specific hospice right connected to where she was living. And I would sleep there with her, and it took a couple of days for her to pass. And on the morning of her passing, I woke up, and she was still, struggling there. And my dad had come over, and I said, listen, I just need to go get something to eat and take a shower. And I left the hospice, and I did that. I took a shower, I got some breakfast, and I went with my family members on a walk around the lake. So the lake is like just under a mile long around. So we took the walk, and as we rounded and came about to the place where we started, all of a sudden a dragonfly came over to me and just kind of moved and danced around me. And I looked right at it. It was like a vibrant fluorescent blue. And it looked at me, and I said to my sister-in-law, I said, oh my God, my mother. I said, I have to go. And I took off to the hospice, which was only a couple blocks away. And I ran up there, and I said, as soon as I walked in, I realized my mom had gone. And I said to my dad, Dad, when did she pass? And he said, she's not gone yet, Gina. And we went over to her, and she had died. And I didn't think, of course, I was caught up in the emotion of the moment, but I didn't think about the dragonfly until I left. Several hours later, I was going back to my hotel room. And as I was waiting in the lobby for the elevator, that dragonfly was there, buzzing all around me at the elevator, right? It's wild. So I just sat down until the dragonfly disappeared. And I just have maintained that really strong connection to dragonflies, and to the fact that animals, spirits come to you in every different form, and you just have to be open to listening and watching and be still enough to accept it.
What a
Yeah.
wonderful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're
When
welcome.
you said that the dragonfly looked at you, I got chills. And
It's funny thing about the dragonflies, and probably insects and animals in general, because usually they're very busy doing their own thing. They have their own work to do, getting food and keeping off predators. So when it does appear that they're looking at you, again, I don't know, but that's my intention, and that's what I accept. I find that to be extremely special and extremely meaningful. Yeah.
Well, this has just been such a wonderful conversation. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to share. Do you have any last words of encouragement for the listeners out there?
Wow. I guess my thoughts would be to be patient with yourself. Give yourself the time you need, even if it takes decades. That your own harmony, your own resolution, your own peace is within you. It just needs to have the venue to come out and the time to be right. So be patient, be understanding, and find your stillness and do your listening wherever you can. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank
So the
you,
way that I
Katie.
end my conversations is I give hugs.
Oh, I'll take it. Ah.
And I also upload this to Spotify and YouTube. So if there's something that you'd like to promote, you can now, or you can give me something, type it up, and I'll read it in the outro, whichever you prefer. You can share your website, you can share your offer, whatever. We're free over here on YouTube and Spotify.
I know, it's so great, right? So I will share my website, which is www.odonatareiki.com.
And I can type that up and put it on the screen too.
That's great, thank you. And through that, I do offer opportunities to take advantage of sessions as well as my events that are occurring both virtually and in person. And also just opportunities to try something. I love to do groups. I love to offer groups. I feel like there's something special about the energy of groups. So if there's a way that you would like to bring a group together to try something, I say let's go for it because it's a magical experience. And the other thing I'd love to promote is my course, which right now is only on Insight Timer Premium, but it is on the 5 Reiki principles. And it is a really valuable exploration of how to use these principles, not with Reiki necessarily, although I use them with my Reiki, but just in terms of living life and taking very simple practices, simple statements, and taking our own complicated lives and fitting into that simplicity. And in the course, I do narrative, but I also offer meditations on each day. So I'd love for people to check that out. And if you're not an Insight Timer, please get there. It's really worth it.
Yeah.
Well, to have the premium, you do have to pay for
Yeah.
it. But if you are interested in learning more about the Reiki principles, please just reach out to me independently, and I'm happy to talk to you.
Lovely. Yay.
Thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate that.
Thanks. And I hope that you'll have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you, wonderful people listening. Please share your thoughts down below. What anything that touched you or made you think or encouraged you. I'd love to hear that. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much, Katie. Take care.
I think one of the things that I love the most about this podcast and the opportunity to connect with people in general is that I'm just barely scratching the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more depth and there's so much more to explore. And I just take these moments that I get and see where my intuition leads me of what questions to ask or where to follow my curiosity in general. And I said in the beginning, but I'll say it again, I just love these philosophical conversations that just make you think so much deeper. There's just so much joy to be uncovered in the self-exploration, in the discovery. And I'd love to hear about whatever in this conversation resonated with you. And I wanted to also talk briefly about a passion project of mine, which is also another podcast. I know. How many podcasts can one person do? Turns out a lot. It's called Clearing the Creative, and I have a website that is clearingthecreative.com. And in this podcast, I'm talking with people, and they're sharing about their struggle with something creative. Like, what is this thing that they really want to do, they feel called to do, but something is stopping it. And we look for that. We look for what is the block, and I also give practical things that they can do to find movement. And it's so rewarding. So I'd love for you to check out the website. I also have a blog there where I share encouraging thoughts. And yeah, well, this has been Silly Songs with... No, this has been the Epic Kate podcast. Thank you for being here and joining me on this journey of looking for the magic, looking for the wonder, looking for the epic. And this is a place to find it. And I hope it inspires you to go look for the epic in your mundane and around you, and to believe in wonder, and to believe that things can get better in your situation. Whatever it is, some decision can be made towards making it better. Finding more peace, finding help, getting support. You are not alone, and your struggles matter. And I am hopeful, and I share my hope with you. All right, gonna get going, but thanks for being here. You know all the things. You know you can share this with somebody if you think that they would like it. You know that it helps the channel to like it and stuff like that. So, yeah. If you're still here, thank you. Hugs!